Hello, my name is Serge Vias, and this is How to Master Grammar. Mastering grammar will unlock powerful writing skills and stronger academic performance for you or your child. Is this training for you? Are you in the right place? Well, you are if you have a learner whose grammar skills, reading, writing, and vocabulary skills can improve. If your learner finds grammar boring or struggles with the concepts, if your child's writing does not shine, has little detail, or is composed of short sentences. We see that a lot, right? Especially with younger students, but even into high school students sometimes don't learn the fundamentals, not just of grammar, but of writing, of reading, and therefore their verbal communication isn't as strong as their written communication isn't as strong as their verbal communication. This is the right training for you if you're prepared to give your child the resources they need to master grammar skills, which unlock so much of the English language arts. What I mean by that is grammar is fundamental to reading, writing, vocabulary, just like numbers are fundamental to mathematics. We need to know the numbers in order to do math. We need to know grammar in order to be effective at all the other parts of English language arts. English language arts. This training is for you if you're looking for the right path on which to set your child so they can achieve academic success. What I mean by that is that just like grammar is fundamental to the English language arts, well, English language arts is fundamental to just about every other subject that I can think of, whether it's history or science, even mathematics. We really need to be able to express ourselves and comprehend communication, the English language. So in this training, what do I mean by how to master grammar? What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, you're going to learn not just how your student can become a grammar master, but by becoming a grammar master, your student will learn how to break down and comprehend complex sentences, how your student can add style, voice, and intrigue to their writing, which is really important, and how your student can write long sentences with authority and clarity. We're going to learn how your student can do those things in this training today. And if they can do those things when they master grammar, your student will be a grammar expert, and their academic performance will rise in all subjects as a result. So who am I and why am I the best person to be explaining these ideas and to be going through this training with you? Well, I'm not the best person, but I'm certainly qualified to. I've taught more than 1,000 students in a myriad of circumstances all around the world. So from middle schoolers in a violent neighborhood to ESL students in South Korea while I lived there for 2 years. And then I came home and worked with elite Los Angeles high school students who just recently gained admittance to colleges like MIT and USC. I'm really proud of those students. They worked very hard. They're not geniuses to get into those schools. What it takes really is just hard work, perseverance, and a belief in self. So I've also been educating for over 10 years. When I was back in college, I majored in English and journalism. And 4.5 years ago, I began my own tutoring services because I felt like I could innovate better models to help each student with their unique needs. I had ideas and I implemented them. And luckily, I've been fortunate enough to run several successful programs, really helping individual students. And like I hope I'm doing right now. So next slide. So before we get into the training, let's make an agreement, please. So I promise to show you in this training how your student can become a grammar expert. If you'll take action on what I share, it'd be a waste of both of our times if I'm sharing this information and it's not used. So how can you use this? Well, please watch the whole video and then show it to your child. Consider that. Also, use the key concepts that we're going to go through in today's training to help your child improve their skills as soon as today. Okay. And then the final way we can take action is by placing your child on a path to game-changing grammar skills. This training is the first step in that. I'm going to talk more about the next steps at the end of the video and how you can take what you learned here and go on to really getting them to become true grammar experts, which will again have a cascade of impacts on their whole academic performance. So before we get to the training, if you or your child have experienced any of these, we need to cover them because we need to talk about those and to provide proper context for the training. So have you ever felt like your child's writing, reading, vocabulary, and or grammar skills are not improving or improving slowly? Or are your child's scores lower than desired on an English quiz, even after the teacher has covered topics in class? And that really applies to just about any concept, right? Science or math. If the teachers go through it, great teachers go through it really well, and the student still scores poorly sometimes, right? If you've had that problem, well, we're going to talk about why in just a sec. Has your child expressed frustration, boredom, or shown carelessness in their academics? We're going to talk about why. And perhaps you've tried workbooks, tutors, or even helping your child yourself, but we still haven't been able to get to where we need to be. There's a couple reasons for all of these issues. They exist for a few different reasons, for several different reasons, a few of which I'm going to touch on right now. So reason one, especially with grammar learning, the teacher-centered classrooms do not teach grammar effectively. There's a whole lot of reasons for this. First off, it's hard to know where to begin. I love teachers. Teachers are great. My sister's a teacher at a public school. She teaches middle school. She loves it. She's an amazing person. I look up to her a lot. Her husband, my brother-in-law, he's a kindergarten teacher. He has so much energy and passion. And I work with teachers of my students all the time. And just the dedication required to be a public school teacher is incredible. So I have an immense amount of respect for teachers. What isn't their fault is that in the past few decades, really several decades, going back all the way to the 1960s, grammar has been de-emphasized. And I could provide a lot of studies, research, and even books that have covered why this has happened. It's not the scope of this training today, but what's undeniable is that it has happened. There has been a de-emphasis on grammar teaching in American education for a while now. As a result, a lot of the teachers in schools today, they themselves have never learned the complete system of grammar, right? They've maybe touched on it in different parts, but their experience with learning is very similar to your students' experience with grammar learning. And as a result, the American education system hasn't found a way to effectively teach grammar. And why is that important? We should probably touch on that. It's really important to understand grammar because not just because the rules are rules and we need to master rules because that's what we do. I don't believe in that. But what I've realized is that students who have a great understanding of grammar learn pathways of their own when trying to express themselves, right? They have the tools required to get their best ideas onto the page. If they aren't taught these tools, then they're not able to craft great sentences, right? And as a result, their writing comes through and we see a lot of the issues that we talked about earlier in this training. So the teacher-centered classroom does not teach grammar effectively, unfortunately. Reason two, language arts concepts are not presented in an engaging way. One-on-one doesn't work either. And one-on-one not working is almost really is a result of an unengaging expression of these concepts. Students need two things to learn. They need to understand why the concepts they're learning are important to their lives, and they need the concepts to be taught in a way that holds their engagement, right? Kids are kids. Even the most studious kids can get bored with something, and if a student is bored with something, they're not going to pick it up as well as they need to, especially grammar, which can be really dry sometimes. Terminology and staring at words is not the most fun thing. I love grammar. I'm a grammar advocate. I love it so much, but it can be really boring and dry sometimes. So there are lots of strategies that I've learned and there's plenty more out there that can help students pick up grammar in a way that is not just meaningful to them, but is also holds their attention. And one-on-one tutoring also is not the best way to pick up these skills because, again, it's not engaging a lot of the time. So that's not super the scope of this training, but knowing that there are ways is really fundamental to becoming a grammar expert. And the last reason some of these issues occur is that students are not taught grammar systematically. And this is probably the biggest reason that students struggle with writing, reading a lot of the time. What happened, obviously grammar too. What happens is, let's look at mathematics. First, we learn numbers, then we learn how addition and subtraction use those numbers to create products. Then we take those addition and subtraction concepts and apply it to multiplication and division, right? And then we build from there to basic algebra, to advanced algebra, to geometry, to calculus, and so on. It's a system where the second step builds on the first, the third step builds on the second, the fourth builds on the third, right? It's effective. That's how we learn. That's how we advance in our understanding of areas. Grammar is not taught this way, unfortunately. Perhaps a second grade teacher might teach a few of the parts of speech, and perhaps a third grade teacher focuses on different areas of grammar and doesn't emphasize parts of speech. Perhaps a fourth grade teacher focuses on other aspects, doesn't even touch on grammar too much. And then we get to fifth grade, where the fifth grade teacher wants to teach grammar, but realizes they might have to start from the beginning because there wasn't that system in place throughout middle school, or elementary, I mean. And by the time we get to middle school, we're not at a place where the student has a comprehensive understanding of the fundamentals. So we need that systematic way of learning in order to advance to higher concepts. And you'll see why in this training, why those higher concepts are super beneficial. So let me introduce you to the simple grammar system. I have come up with this just really over the years. I've worked with kids teaching grammar, learning more about grammar myself, and realizing that as students learn grammar, we can break it down into much simpler parts to help them gain that expertise they need, right? We can cut out the fat a little bit. We don't need to learn every aspect of grammar to become an expert at it. So that's what the simple grammar system aims to do, is to help them become grammar experts in as simple and efficient as way as possible. But before we get to that, I need you to understand something really, really important. What I'm going to cover with you today is the strategies that they need to become an expert. But on top or underlying the strategies are habits and environment. Just like we learned the strategies behind multiplication, division, and algebra, it's not enough. We need the habits and environment that really allow that learning and the strategies to take place, right? The habits are the tools and the tricks that a teacher might teach, and the repetition to know what to go back to in order to solve a math problem. And understanding or learning those tricks and tools couldn't take place if we didn't have the environment, right? So at the top, we have the strategies, which I'm going to cover today. We need the habits and environment for those things to rest on, right? That's really important, and we'll touch on that a little bit after I explain how your student can become a grammar expert. So here we go. Grab a pen and paper. The first learning pillar of becoming a grammar expert is parts of speech. These are nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, interjections, and articles. You might have heard of some of these, maybe don't have a complete understanding of all of them. And let me explain why that's important. So 99% of all words in English can be broken down into these 9 parts of speech. A student becomes much more aware of not just what they're reading, but also what they're writing when they know how to classify these words, right? And this is just the first step towards building things later on, or towards concepts later on, which become even more important. But why don't students know parts of speech? Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's like playing a little game of whack-a-mole. Second grade teacher might cover some parts of speech. Third grade teacher might not. By the time we get to fourth grade, fourth grade teacher has to go back all the way to the beginning. And we're just playing whack-a-mole, trying to master these concepts, but we're not building it in a systematic way, right? So what students need to do is to first master parts of speech, right? If they're able to break down a sentence into just those 9 parts of speech, then they're going to understand that sentence and how it's functioning much better. I'm going to help you out today. You can go to 9pos.savias.com so your student can learn the definitions of those 9 parts of speech. If they do that, really doesn't take very long at this Quizlet. There's only 9 terms and definitions. The definitions are pretty simple. If they learn that, then they'll be well on their way to becoming a grammar expert. The second learning pillar is phrases. Now, this one is actually not really taught in schools much at all, to be honest. Very few students become aware of the only 10 types of English phrases. Just about all English sentences can be broken into just 10 phrases. Those are noun phrases, verb phrases, adjective phrases, adverb phrases, prepositional phrases, participial phrases. Oh, can I do it? Appositives, absolute phrases, gerund phrases, and infinitive phrases. That might have been a lot of words right there, but really it's only 10. And they might have sounded very foreign because, again, we don't learn these in school. But just like parts of speech, they're not super complicated to learn. And if your student learns these types of phrases, well, here's the thing. They're going to be able to go and look at their sentence, which maybe is only a few words long, and realize this sentence is short because I only have, I only have a noun phrase and a verb phrase. What if I added a participial phrase or a prepositional phrase? Or what if I added an absolute phrase or a gerund phrase or an infinitive phrase, right? If they know these things, then suddenly their sentences gain length and complexity. It forces them to be better thinkers too, because now they have to add these ideas. The more they're thinking of ideas, the better they're coming up with, the better writing they're coming up with. So, but why don't students learn the phrases? Well, again, I have a tremendous amount of respect for teachers, but frankly, not all, but most English teachers don't know the 10 phrases themselves. In fact, you're going to be hard pressed finding a resource online that lists all 10 phrases in one spot. You might find 2 or 3 here, 4 or 5 there, but really grammar is not understood systematically in our country, and it's not taught systematically at schools. Phrases are a super powerful tool that just isn't really seen in the school system. So students need to master these phrases, and it's not that hard. Here, you can go to 10p.savias.com to see the definitions of the 10 phrases. Get your student understanding those, memorizing those, and they're going to be just 2/3 of the way to becoming grammar experts. So the last one is sentence types, right? So once we know parts of speech, once we know phrases, there are only 4 types of English phrases. Every properly written grammar sentence or properly written sentence in English, which is again 90% of all sentences you'll find in published books and articles. Sometimes authors will break rules a little bit, but 90% of published work is 90% of sentences in published work are written in one of 4 sentence types: simple, compound, complex, compound, complex. That's it. And they're actually not that hard to master. So again, where do students go wrong here? And it's the same story that I've been covering with you. Sometimes I would say that students are taught these more often than phrases, but less often than parts of speech, and certainly not often enough. So if a student realizes that their whole paragraph is comprised of simple sentences, then but they understand parts of speech, understand phrases, understand sentence types. Just like I do with my students, I say, okay, go back. We need a couple more compound sentences here. Let's turn this one into a compound complex, right? If your students know the terms mean, then they're able to go back and revise and create deeper, more interesting sentences with great phrases and just really nice writing. But they're not able to do this because they don't learn these at school very often. But they need to master these. Same thing, right? So here they are, the 4 sentence types. There's a couple other terms on this Quizlet so that they can understand those definitions just a little bit more, but there's, I think, just 8 terms on this Quizlet. So given those 9 parts of speech, those 10 phrases, that's 19 terms, plus the 8 on this one, that's just 27 terms that your student can master today or in the next couple of days, maybe weeks. It's 27 terms. And if they memorize them and understand them, then that's all they need to know really to become great writers, readers, which is going to help them a lot in their academic performance all around, right? So Thanks for making it this far. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, and it's not even as much detail as I want to go into. So I'm happy to answer questions if you have them. Feel free to get in touch. But let's revisit our agreement from the beginning here. Um, I promised to go over these concepts, how your student can become a grammar expert, and I have. If they master those concepts that I gave in the Quizlets, then they will be able to accomplish all those things we covered at the beginning of the training here. But I also ask you to take action, right? Now, to help you take action, we need a plan. There always needs to be an action plan, and I've set I've set some time aside to help you build out that action plan, right? How can your student take these skills we've covered today, not just master these terms, but apply them and synthesize, create better paragraphs and arguments in their writing, which will, have an impact on their history essays, on their understanding of science textbooks, on their understanding of math word problems, right? So in this, so I can offer you a 30-minute call. Happy to do that, no charge. It's not a sales call at all. I just, I want to do this for you. My goal as an educator is to help as many students as I can. I can't guarantee that I can help every student. I don't know you. I haven't seen you, haven't met you before. I don't know your students' needs. I don't know if I'm the right person for them. But what I can do in this 30-minute call is to provide my expertise and suggestions on how your student can accomplish their goals, right? On how your student can accomplish their goals and use this grammar learning to, again, improve. Again, it's not a sales call. I don't know if I'm the right person for you, but I can provide some suggestions. If it makes sense for me to work with your child to help them achieve their goals, great. Let's get them set up with some time. My schedule is pretty limited, but I do have a couple programs that I think work for a lot of students. But again, I don't know if it'll work for you. There's absolutely no pressure. This is not a sales call. Again, just feel free to get in touch, schedule a time with me in this 30-minute call so we can talk about how your student can become more proficient or gain an expertise in grammar, and again, improve their academic performance. You have two choices, really. You can take what I've taught you here to mastering parts of speech, pronouns, sentence types in the simple grammar system, and try to apply it yourself. There's tons of resources online to try to use. You can continue maybe searching through that. It can get a little tedious. You can trust the school system, but as I kind of laid out, that might not be the best option. As much respect as I have for teachers, again, there's some issues there. But in that search and the time it takes to make that search, you risk losing some time and ground on acquiring these skills, which can have a huge impact in your child's life. Or you can take some time with me to gain some expert advice on how your child can best implement the simple grammar system to master English language arts. We can build a plan together. You can understand what it'll take, whether that involves me and my programs, or I can suggest other programs too that I know about that work for some students. But either way, at the end of the call, you'll have some resources that your child can use, guaranteed. So feel free, if you're interested, arrange a time to talk with me so we can build a plan so your child can achieve their academic success. Feel free to visit plan.savias.com. Schedule a 30-minute call with me. I'd be happy to talk and share what I know and see if we can build something out for your child. Thank you so much. I know it's been a long training. I know I threw a lot of information at you, but I hope you've gained something, and I hope to talk to you in the future. Thank you very much, and have a great day.